Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome back to Sip and Talk. I'm Joe.
Hey.
Hey, how are you doing today? You are looking
I'm Sunny.
absolutely glowing, I have to say.
Oh, man, I'm doing fantastic, thank you. I mean, I've been getting my sleep in, drinking my water.
I can definitely tell. And you've actually been incredibly polite today, too. Which, well, it brings me to something we were chatting about off mic. Remember our conversation about how politeness is actually this incredibly expensive, civilized luxury?
I do. Yeah, it is one of those things you don't really think about until you break it down. Like, imagine you are standing in line at a coffee shop, right? Someone bumps into your shoulder, you smile, you say, oh, no worries.
Right.
That tiny moment of grace. Sociologists argue that relying on 3 core pillars that only really exist in a highly functioning, well-resourced society.
Exactly. Let's kind of unpack that because it is fascinating. So the first pillar is reduced survival defense. Basically, in a stable, developed system, you don't need to be aggressive just to secure your basic resources.
Yeah, you don't have to literally physically fight for your spot in that coffee line.
Right. Which leads directly to the second pillar, which is freed cognitive and emotional bandwidth. Waiting for a pedestrian to cross the street or, managing your temper when someone cuts you off in traffic, it requires an emotional toll.
It takes energy.
Exactly. You can only afford to spend that mental energy when your daily life isn't consumed by just zero-sum survival stressors.
And then the third one is institutional trust. Politeness acts as this, standardized boundary. We keep a comfortable distance and act courteously because we fundamentally trust that if a real, serious dispute happens, there is a functional system to handle it.
We don't have to take justice into our own hands.
Right. So, speaking of that coffee shop bandwidth, have you noticed how the entire culture of casual conversation has shifted recently?
Oh, completely. Like 2 years ago, you'd overhear people whispering about crypto or asking, hey, how much did your investments make this quarter?
Yeah, the stock market was everything.
But yesterday, I was getting my latte, and the guys next to me were literally comparing notes on their wellness routines.
Yeah.
One was asking, hey, how many kilometers did you run today?
Yeah, or are you taking creatine daily? How long was your 16-8 fast today?
Yes. It is the new obsession. Everyone is hyper-focused on health and extending their lifespans.
Which is great. I mean, we know a whole lot about trying to stay healthy, right? You need incredible stamina just to keep up with the insane daily news cycle without burning out.
Oh, for sure.
But here is the reality check. While everyone is hyper-focused on personal longevity, the very cruel world of global finance and geopolitics just keeps spinning.
It never stops. We might be trying to live forever, but the macro landscape is shifting violently under our feet. I mean, we're looking at our ongoing tech war with China, massive global supply chain restructuring, and Washington's latest Section 301 tariffs completely reshaping how global trade actually operates.
And for anyone who isn't deep in the trade policy weeds, those Section 301 tariffs are essentially the mechanism that allows our government to unilaterally penalize foreign countries for what we deem unfair trade practices.
It's a huge deal.
It is a massive stick Washington uses to protect our domestic industries. It really begs the question, is globalized free trade actually over? Or are we just watching the superpowers draw up a completely new set of rules to carve out their own advantages?
That is the big debate right now. And for you Sip and Talkers sitting with us today, we want you to help shape where we take this show next week. We've got a few ideas, so drop a comment below and let us know what you want to hear us dig into next.
Yeah, let us know.
Number 1, tech war and semiconductor strategy. Number 2, macroeconomics and new tariffs. Number 3, geopolitics and pragmatism. Or number 4, other. Just tell us what is on your mind.
I'm really curious to see where the audience is leaning on that. But for today, grab your drink. Let's pivot from personal survival to national survival. Specifically, we need to talk about the quest for self-sufficiency in the AI race.
This is arguably the most defining economic narrative of our time. And we just saw a massive milestone. Over in China, the memory chip maker CXMT had an absolute blockbuster debut in Shanghai.
Oh, huge.
They raised 66.6 billion RMB, which is roughly 9.8 billion US dollars. It is the second largest IPO in China's history. And the market reaction was just staggering. Shares skyrocketed between 480 and 530% on the first day.
Wow.
Turnover hit 100 billion RMB in just the opening hours.
The scale of that capital injection is wild. But we really need to look at the underlying mechanism here, like why CXMT? Because they represent Beijing's best hope for technological self-sufficiency in DRAM.
And DRAM stands for Dynamic Random Access Memory, right?
Exactly. It's essentially the short-term working memory for computers. When you are training massive AI models, the processor needs to access incredibly large data sets instantaneously. Without cutting-edge DRAM, your AI servers just bottleneck.
And historically, China has relied heavily on foreign giants for that memory, specifically South Korea's Samsung and SK Hynix. So CXMT is Beijing's primary vehicle to break that reliance.
Right. But looking at it from our perspective, our government has actively tried to kneecap that progress. Washington actually blacklisted CXMT last year.
Yeah.
We are using tools like our Shoot Assess Act to heavily subsidize our own domestic manufacturing while simultaneously restricting their access to our advanced semiconductor tools.
So with all that top-down pressure from our side, you have to ask, is a 500% stock pop just a massive speculative bubble?
That is exactly what I was thinking. It feels like buying a house at a massive premium purely on the rumor that
the city might build a train station nearby in like 10 years?
Yes, exactly. Like, does this reflect real underlying value, or is this just state-backed patriotic hype?
Well, it is kind of a mix, but there is hard math behind it. Currently, CXMT holds about an 11% market share globally, but industry analysts point out they desperately need to hit about 15% to reach a threshold of survival.
Why 15% specifically? Because semiconductor manufacturing is this brutally cyclical industry with astronomical fixed costs. At 15% market share, CXMT generates enough internal cash flow to survive the inevitable industry downturns without needing constant government bailouts.
Oh, I see.
So investors aren't just pricing in current profits, they are pricing in the absolute sovereign necessity of this company succeeding. If CXMT fails, China's broader AI infrastructure build-out hits a massive wall.
Which brings up a fascinating contrast on the software side of things. While CXMT's hardware IPO is surging, we just saw DeepSeek, which is one of China's major AI model developers, hit the pause button on their own IPO fundraising.
Yeah, and the timing on that is really critical. This pause happened right after some unverified comments from DeepSeek's founder leaked online. Reports suggest he essentially admitted to a persistent structural lag in China's AI capabilities compared to us here in the U.S.
And didn't he mention hardware specifically?
He did. More importantly, he highlighted their heavy ongoing reliance on our NVIDIA chips to train their models.
So you have hardware self-sufficiency being heavily rewarded by the market in China, but the software and model side is struggling with the reality of the U.S. technological lead, which makes NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang's recent interview so relevant. He came out strongly advocating for open-source AI models.
Yeah, he argued that open source is essential not just for rapid innovation, but for safety and national sovereignty. He pointed out that both us in the U.S. and China are producing extraordinary AI researchers.
Right.
His underlying point seemed to be that attempting to completely lock down AI development in these walled gardens might actually lead to less robust, more dangerous models than open, collaborative ones.
But if you look at the strategy of our U.S. tech giants, they aren't exactly relying on open borders. They are aggressively locking in international alliances to secure their lead.
Oh, absolutely.
Like NVIDIA's moves in South Korea are a perfect example. Jensen Huang recently declared this a golden age for Korea. NVIDIA just announced a $1 billion strategic investment, taking a 4.5% stake in Naver, which is Korea's leading AI cloud provider.
And honestly, that is a drop in the bucket compared to the infrastructure play. NVIDIA and SK Group are entering into a $500 billion business partnership. They're aiming to scale up what they are literally calling gigawatts of AI factories.
Wait, let me stop you there. I really have to push back on this because my head is spinning with these numbers. We were talking hundreds of billions of dollars in capital expenditure, or CapEx.
Yeah, it's massive.
But when does the actual profit show up? It feels like we're paving these massive 12-lane AI highways across the globe, but the cars haven't even been manufactured yet. How sustainable is it to just keep pouring concrete without a clear return on investment?
The short answer, it's not. And the markets are definitely starting to get nervous. We've seen significant volatility in the tech sector recently precisely because institutional investors are asking, where is the software payoff?
Right, where is the killer app?
Exactly. Building the infrastructure is mandatory just to stay in the race, but if consumer and enterprise applications don't start generating equivalent revenue soon, these trillion-dollar valuations are going to face a severe reality check.
And corporate reality is already starting to bite in other sectors, especially in China, where the economic restructuring is intense. Just look at Trip.com. They were recently slapped with a $765 million fine by Chinese regulators for abusing market dominance.
That is a massive penalty, and the mechanism of how they did it is what regulators are really cracking down on. Trip.com was heavily restricting cross-platform operations. Basically, they were using algorithms to punish hotel vendors who dared to offer cheaper prices on rival apps.
Wow.
Yeah. Beijing stepping in shows they are shifting from a growth-at-all-costs mindset to prioritizing consumer fairness and curbing tech monopolies.
Then you have Shein. The fast fashion giant has been trying to go public forever. After failing to get approval for IPOs in New York and London, they're now aiming for Hong Kong. But they just had to report their financials, and the profitability is seriously softening.
It's dropping fast.
They swung to a $99 million loss in early 2026, which is a massive drop compared to a $395 million profit just a year earlier.
Shein is hitting the absolute limits of that hyper-growth, ultra-fast supply chain model. When global air freight costs rise and when Western countries start closing those tax loopholes on small package imports, their razor-thin margins just evaporate.
Yeah.
But perhaps the most strategic corporate pivot right now is CATL, the global EV battery giant. They are currently executing a massive stock buyback worth 20 to 40 billion RMB.
And they are doing that because passenger EV growth is plateauing globally. So to offset that slowdown, CATL is pivoting heavily into energy storage systems, or ESS. ESS now accounts for 20% of their revenue. And this connects everything we've just talked about. Think about it. What requires massive grid-level energy storage systems?
AI data centers.
Yes. Those gigawatts of AI factories NVIDIA and SK Group are building. They require incredibly robust energy grids. You cannot have a power fluctuation when you are training a billion-dollar model.
Yeah.
CATL is positioning itself to be the battery backup for the global AI boom, not just the EV boom.
Which transitions us to the absolute bedrock of this entire conversation, because CATL's batteries, well, they only store power. They don't generate it. To run these massive data centers to manufacture these semiconductor chips, you need an immense, reliable supply of baseload electricity. And right now, the global energy grid relies heavily on fossil fuels from a region that is actively freezing up.
The geopolitical instability in the Middle East threatening global oil supplies is terrifying. Though, just reporting the facts impartially here, we have seen a slight temporary de-escalation recently. The U.S. military paused strikes on Iran for 2 consecutive nights following 13 straight days of attacks.
Yeah.
And in response to that pause, Iran signaled it would halt its retaliatory strikes.
And the reason for that pause is a brutal lesson in modern military economics. Multiple defense reports indicate that the U.S. is simply burning through its stockpile of munitions. Specifically, our Patriot anti-missile interceptors and air defense weapons.
It is literally a math problem.
It is a catastrophic math problem. You are talking about incredibly asymmetric warfare. Shooting down a $20,000 Houthi drone with a $4 million Patriot interceptor missile is like, I don't know, using a Ferrari to deliver a single pizza.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
You can only do it so many times before you go bankrupt. Our stockpiles are not infinite, and manufacturing new interceptors takes years, not weeks.
So this pause is just as much about logistical exhaustion as it is about diplomacy.
Exactly. Trump is allowing space for diplomacy right now because the military fundamentally needs it. We are seeing reports that Iranian and Omani officials are actually meeting to discuss the safe passage of commercial shipping in the Strait of Hormuz, which is arguably the most vital global energy artery on the planet.
But even if the Strait of Hormuz stabilizes, there is a very dangerous second front. We are seeing an intensification of the parallel conflict between the Houthis and Saudi Arabia. If both the Strait of Hormuz and the Red Sea are blocked simultaneously, the global energy supply isn't just disrupted, it is structurally compromised.
And the macroeconomic impact hits you immediately. Because of the temporary pause in strikes, Brent crude oil dropped about 5% down to around $92 a barrel. But that underlying volatility remains.
Which brings it right back to your wallet. Think about our Federal Reserve. We have an upcoming rate decision. The consensus expectation is that the Fed will hold rates steady. But if oil keeps hovering near $100 a barrel because of this Middle East conflict, it embeds inflation into literally everything.
It is the ultimate headache for policymakers. I mean, the Fed can control interest rates, sure, but they cannot control the geopolitical shocks that dictate energy prices. When energy spikes, the cost of manufacturing silicon wafers goes up, the cost of shipping fast fashion goes up, the cost of producing food goes up.
And when macroeconomic pressures crush the middle class, when inflation bites and jobs become scarce, That institutional trust we talked about at the very beginning of the show begins to fracture. The luxury of an orderly, polite society starts to break down into real-world chaos.
We are seeing stark examples of that social contract tearing globally right now.
Just look at India. We are seeing massive student protests erupting across the country, resulting in a major political setback for Prime Minister Modi. Following widespread outrage over verified leaks in the national medical entrance exams, the education minister was essentially forced to resign.
But if you look at the underlying sociology there, this isn't just about a leaked test.
Right.
The exam leak was simply the match. The fuel is a complete boiling over of youth frustration. India has this massive, highly educated youth demographic that is facing severe unemployment, deep concerns about the quality of their public schooling, and a fundamental demand for democratic accountability.
It is a total breach of the social contract, because the promise is, if you study hard and play by the rules, you get ahead. But if the test is rigged for those who can pay for leaked answers, the system has completely failed you.
It proves that the third pillar of politeness, institutional trust, is broken. When citizens feel the legal and social systems no longer protect them equitably, they stop waiting politely in line. They take to the streets to demand that accountability be restored.
And it is not just political or institutional breakdowns either. We are seeing literal environmental breakdowns pushing developed societies to the brink. Right now, historic wildfires are ravaging Europe. We're talking about massive, uncontrollable fires in France near Bordeaux and in Spain near Madrid.
The scale of the destruction is just devastating. Over 300,000 people have been forced to evacuate their homes. The fires have destroyed 50,000 hectares of land. It is severely testing the emergency resources and the physical infrastructure of these highly developed nations.
It really brings everything full circle for me. Whether it is the breakdown of academic integrity and economic opportunity in India, or the literal burning of infrastructure in Europe, we are witnessing what happens when the bandwidth of a society is pushed past its limits.
Yeah.
When emergency resources are stretched thin, when people are evacuated from their homes, or when they feel economically trapped, that polite, orderly functioning of society evaporates incredibly fast.
Because, as we established, order and politeness require a surplus. A surplus of safety, a surplus of resources, and a surplus of trust. When those surpluses are threatened by climate change, inflation, or political corruption, the foundational cracks of civilization begin to show.
It really has been a journey today. We started by looking at the sociology of politeness in our local coffee shops. We traveled to Shanghai to unpack the billions of dollars pouring into AI memory chips for national self-sufficiency. We looked at our U.S. tech giants placing massive capex bets in South Korea. And we navigated the geopolitical tightropes currently being walked in the Middle East to secure the crude oil that powers this entire global machine.
It is a deeply complex web, and every single thread is connected to the other.
Absolutely. Before we wrap up, a quick reminder to you listening. Any companies, stocks, or assets mentioned in today's Sip and Talk are purely for informational and data analysis purposes. This is not investment advice. Always do your own research.
And a reminder of our core ethos here. We do not take sides in political or international conflicts. Our goal is simply to objectively present the facts, explain the mechanics of how these systems work, and encourage you to practice critical, independent thinking in a very noisy world.
I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over today. We started by defining politeness and diplomacy as civilized luxuries. Luxuries afforded only by a surplus of resources, cheap energy, and deep institutional trust. But as the unprecedented energy demands of artificial intelligence collide with shifting global supply chains, dwindling military stockpiles, and environmental crises, what happens to global peace when those resources are permanently drained? If the surplus disappears, will we lose the luxury of global politeness altogether?
That is a chilling but incredibly important question to ponder.
Thank you for joining us on this journey today. Make sure you hit that subscribe button for Sip and Talk wherever you get your audio. And a quick shout out before we go. I urge you to check out our old friend Mickey's YouTube channel, Mickey to Life, to catch his latest travel vlog. Stay curious, stay informed, and we will see you next time.